All right, welcome to the lunchtime video. The last video we discovered naturally, so kind of exciting way to find out about it. The fact that BGP, when it exports a route from the routing table into BGP, it doesn't include the next hop. So you've got to add that on there using, in this case, we used next hop self. So I'd like to start out this video by kind of learning more about that, because it's not entirely new to me. It was definitely on the precursor exams, but just the fact that it kind of jumped out to me is kind of a good sign that I could need some brush up on it. So here we go. Let's see if we can get a Juniper. Here we go. BGP next hop self overview. So when a BGP router reports itself as the next hop, whether because of an explicit neighbor next hop self configuration or implicitly as a result of participating in an EBGP session. Okay, so that's some good information there. So we're not going to have that problem with anything learned over EBGP. It's only a problem with IBGP. BGP allocates a new label. BGP allocates in a new in label and adds an entry to the MPLS forwarding table, creating a label to next hop mapping. When a BGP router does not report itself as the next hop, whether because of an explicit neighbor next hop unchanged configuration or implicitly as a result of participating in an IBGP session. So, okay, so this is already good to know. If it's going to be EBGP, you don't need to worry about that because it will just use the next hop of where it learned the route from. But if it's an IBGP, it will not include it unless you have special configuration. BGP does not allocate a new in label. Instead, if the route is advertised as a labeled route, BGP uses the existing out label. This feature is mainly used on route reflectors. The determination to allocate an in label is made only after the outbound route map has been processed. Therefore, the in label allocation and the creation of the label to next hop mapping are performed after the need is apparent, conserving the number of in labels allocated. So clearly this is kind of a bit extra. It's about MPLS as well as BGP and how they interact. We really just want to learn about this why it's necessary to have a next hop, which we did. It's because IBGP doesn't include that information. So one potential issue with IBGP is that it doesn't change the next hop address. Sometimes this can cause reachability issues. Look at this example. So we have AS12, we have AS3. AS3. Above, we have R1 and R2 in AS12 running IBGP. R3 is in AS3, and we use EBGP between R2 and R3. So that looks very familiar. It's exactly like what we've got going on here. Once we advertise network 3.3.3.0/24 on R3, so again, this looks very familiar. This is exactly what we got going on. On router 3 in BGP, then R2 will learn this prefix and stores it in its BGP table. The next hop address will be 192.168.23.3. So here. Once R1 learns about the prefix 3.3.3.3.0/24, then the next hop address will remain 192.168.23.3, when R1 doesn't know how to reach this address, it will fail to install 3.3.3.0/24 in its routing table. Okay, so here's two methods to deal with it. The first method is okay. So the first solution is simple. We can advertise the network in IBGP so that R1 is able to reach the next hop. Okay. So, oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, well, let's just kind of stick with the next hop self. I mean, we know what the issue is now. It's that when a route is advertised through EBGP, it includes the next hop, but when it's advertised through IBGP, it doesn't update that. It just either keeps the next hop it had, or it doesn't have one at all, which I'm kind of surprised because I would think that it would not be able to hit Memphis because this route in Biloxi, clouds show route 24.16.0/24. So this route, oops, we don't need the mask. There we go. I would think that this wouldn't have a next hop. So, but you can see that it does, but it's through IBGP. So maybe that policy is what's doing that, and I can remove that next hop self policy, and that will fix the issue. It will not fix the issue, but it will make things more clear as to how it's operating. So I'm going to delete this export policy next hop self, and then we'll see how the next hop changes. So we're going to do pipe match next hop. And let's have some extra spaces so that we don't get that extra stuff. There we go. And then pipe refresh 1. So now we got our next hop popping up. So let's see how that changes if I remove this. So it looks like it's pretty safe to say that there's no change. So this is an instance where it is being advertised into IBGP. However, the next hop is not is being sent. So I wonder if I go on Jackson and I look at this, it'll still have this next hop, but of course it's going to be hidden if that were the case. So I'm going to try that. Although I could be learning it over here and then get the next hop here, but either way, I think it'll be interesting to look at that route on Jackson. So, yep, looks like the next hop is just here instead of there. So, all right. So that doesn't make a difference with that route. But it looks like the problem is if a BGP route is learned over multiple hops, it doesn't by default update the next hop. It sends the information as it has. So it's like if I'm sending a message to Robert, but that message is intended for Sandy, and I say, "Dear Robert, could you please send this over to Sandy?" And Robert goes, "Yeah, sure, I can do that. Here you go, Sandy." And it says, "Dear Robert, would you please send this over to Sandy?" That's kind of a nonsensical message. So what I need to say to Robert is, "Can you please edit this so that Sandy knows it's from me, or Sandy knows how to get it back to me, or just you can't, when you're sending a BGP route through BGP, you're sending static information that will need to be updated by the neighbor if you're sending it over more than one hop." Okay, so I'm going to roll back that change so that these are no longer hidden, and that is good. And then I will verify once again that I can ping all of these, and then I will try to ping Topeka. There we go. So that is pingable. That is pingable. And these are the ones that are the moment of truth. Oh, and it should be ping. Ah, okay. So this is the issue we had last time, where it was getting the route. There's no issue with the route. Oops, why can't, there we go. So there's no issue with the route, but we can see there's not even an issue with the next hop. Well, let's see how this route looks over on Memphis, because that could be a good clue. So that looks good. I guess I'm surprised it's getting caught on Memphis. It could be something with the return. Oh, and I am forgetting to do the source. So ping to 24.16.0 or .1, source 2.168.22.1. Yeah, it's important to, I think it'll choose one of these by default instead of this one if I don't specify the source. 92.168.0.1. Perfect. Okay, so now let's try 10.242.152.1. So I think it's going to be important to check both the destination and the source in the routing table. So yeah, you can see we have no issues with it because the way traceroute works is it sets the time to live. And that's another thing I can do is pull up the Wireshark and see the traceroute. So it's getting, oh, so now it's getting all the way out to here, but on Atlanta, it's having trouble. So I'm going to be back in a second. All right, sorry about that brief interruption there. So now I need to figure out why it's stopping on Atlanta. So let's look at the destination and the source route on Atlanta, and hopefully there's some clues there. Okay, so now we can see that the next hop for the destination route, so from Biloxi is going to be 10.40.10.1. And then for here, it's going to be, so I don't see what the issue is there. Let's see if there's an issue on Miami with those two routes. Because it could be that it's getting across, but then there's an issue there. We can always do a Wireshark capture as well, or a TCP sniff. Oh, so here's the problem. The route to that destination is not making it all the way to Miami. So let's take a look at show route receiving protocol BGP. Oh, and we got to specify a neighbor. So show, oh, but we have the neighbor in the documentation. So it's going to be 10.240.10.2. Table inet.0 pipe refresh 1. Perfect. So now let's take a look at what's being sent. And I have a feeling it's the import policy. So, yep, it looks like we've got no export policy to the IBGP. So we're going to need to, of course, export all of the routes being received from Memphis. So show route receiving protocol BGP, and then the Memphis neighbor 10.3.3.1 table inet.0. So we're receiving these two routes from the Memphis neighbor. I'm surprised we're not receiving this one as well. I'm really surprised we're not receiving that one as well. Let's see here. So, okay. Is it not exporting it? So we're exporting. Yeah, it looks like we're not exporting anything into EBGP, only into IBGP. So I think we're going to need to export that as well. So let's see here. So edit policy options. Policy statement into BGP. Show pipe display set relative. Okay, so now let's fix these up so that we've got policies for EGP, EBGP, and different policies for IBGP. Oops. Okay, so I'm going to make a new one called into IBGP. So we're going to need to advertise this because we can see on Biloxi, show route receiving protocol BGP, and then the neighbor is going to be 10.10.1.2. You can see, sure enough, we're receiving it from Memphis, but on Atlanta, show route receiving protocol BGP, we're not receiving it from Memphis because it's only being advertised into the it's only being redistributed into IBGP, but not EBGP. So edit policy statement into IBGP. Now we're going to have these statements. I'm also, I think, going to need to have a multiple route filter lists. So edit policy options, route filter list. Oops. Okay, so I'm going to delete route filter list routes. And now I'm going to edit route filter, filter list. I kind of like the underscores a little better. List, oops. Oh, it's a command though. It's not a name. Okay, so edit, this is where I can use underscores. So IBGP routes. So these are all the routes we want to be included in IBGP. So it's going to be these here. And this one, of course, we want them all to be available to our IBGP neighbors. So set route, oops. So set, now we just type in the address. So 10.242.152.0/21 exact. Now, of course, you might be thinking, is this really how BGP works? You've got to create a route filter list for every single route you want in there. You know, what if we've got millions and millions of routes? It's just not going to work. Well, you don't have to do it by specific route. You can do it by the protocol, all sorts of different ways. So yeah, instead of setting a route filter list, if I go up, I can also do it by the community. I think that's the way it's most commonly done, is you assign each route of a certain type to a community, and then you just determine which communities you want. So, but you can see there's all sorts of ways you can do it. It's not just about entering in different routes. It looks like you can even do it by the AS path. So I could just have all routes from 931 be accepted. But I think I'm just going to stick to kind of what's been working for me and just use that as a starting point. And then if I want an extra challenge, kind of learn more about how that can scale. Oops, and it's going to be exact. Yeah, I think mostly that will be through communities. Like that's what the community statement is for. And we saw community statements in a lot of the other documentation. And it might even be in this most recent exercise we were doing here. No, not in this one, but definitely in the previous ones. So I think I'll try to go back and find that. Ah, it looks like it's too slow though. Oh, no. So it's gonna work. So 4-byte ASN authentication. Let's see which one I did last. So, oh, it's going super slow too again. Okay, so November 30th. Oh, looks like, so November 30th. So these were not modified. I'm not sure what happened. Ah, here we go. Okay, so now I can see which one I did the most recent. So definitely I did BFD last. So I think I remember in this lab, there was something about a community. So let's read what that said, because I think that's going to be more typically the way it is configured. Whoops. Nope, don't see it there. So I think it's worth a look in the other ones. Assuming my internet behaves. Okay, now it's behaving. Oops. Got some extra stuff in there. So now, oh, so this is going to be pretty specific regarding authentication. So I wouldn't think that would have extra information about communities. You're willing to bet it was here. A long time ago, though. Feels like it was yesterday. Yeah, so all sorts of information about communities here. I'd like to see it in the example, though. Well, I'll just leave this open. Well, I'll close it and then go back, get back on track. Okay, so show pipe display set. Yeah, that's something I'll save for later, because yeah, this is not scalable at all, but I think just the basic functionality of BGP will be demonstrated pretty well just by using this. So it looks like I didn't change where I was calling it. So I've got to call it somewhere else. Oh, and it looks like I did actually enter this in. So I've got to call it here, set protocols BGP group, EBGP, and then export. Oops, and it's going to be right. Okay, so I'm taking it, trying to really have it make good intuitive sense. So I'm being really careful about how I name everything. And there we go, that looks good. So now it's time to set up a route filter list for EBGP routes, which of course, if we're exporting it out to the EBGP group, it's going to be these. So we're going to have this route be exported both into EBGP and into IBGP. So edit policy options, route filter list, EBGP routes. Set 172.24.16.0/20. Oh, exact. Seem to be, I think, coming from Cisco world. I'm just not used to doing that. Very much originally from Cisco, educational wise. Oops, exact again. I'll just never learn. That's what this character's for. All right. I've got multiple neighbors. Oh, looks like my pure AS is gone. So I am going to need that. I guess I mistakenly thought that was the export policy, and I was defining it for the AS. Oh, and I need a new policy. So edit policy options, policy statement into EBGP. Set term 1 from route filter list, and that's going to be EBGP routes. Set term 1, then accept. Set term 2, then reject. All right, and then it looks like I do up, show pipe display, set relative. I've still got the into IBGP policy calling the routes. So I'm going to fix that. Oops. Okay, so I think this is all that is required. So I would like to make these uppercase, but I guess it doesn't matter because I kind of like how it pops out at you. I think I'm going to do that because that's not going to be too hard. So it's just going to be a matter of edits, policy options, show pipe display set relative, and then just put it in Notepad++. And then this is a really nice feature of Notepad++ I like, uppercase. Uppercase, and then it's more than just that. I'm going to need to change what it's actually called as well. Okay. All right, and let's make these underscores just to be more consistent. So it's clear that it's not a command, or yeah, not a command that's part of Junos OS. So this looks good to me. Oh, we are going to need to change how it's applied for the neighbors as well. So yeah, so here is going to need to be, oh, looks like it's already changed. So yeah, that looks good. So let's do this. So edit policy options, route filter list. Oops. So now we're going to delete all of these. Okay, so we can delete everything under here. And then paste this all in. All right. So I think that's good. And now I need to delete where it's applied. So delete protocols BGP group IBGP export next hop self. And then now I can do this statement. Okay, and now I need to do these. So policy options, policy statements into EBGP. Okay, so yeah, everything I think looks good. Oops, looks like we got an issue here. So the first one is under policy options. So IBGP is referenced but not defined. And then export list not added. So let's take a look at policy options first. So it's saying that this is not defined. And I see it's very much defined. So, I don't know why it thinks it's not defined, because it is defined. Let's take a look at that again, that error message. IBGP underscore routes is not defined, is referenced but not defined under policy options, but we can see, aha, okay, so here's the problem. It's defined, yes, but it's defined as a route filter list. It's not defined as a policy statement. So export only works on policy statements, not route filter lists. And I called in the route filter list, but not the policy statement. So that's the issue with that one. So that was a nice and easy one. Hopefully the other one is just as easy. So if I do a commit check now, I'll only have one error. Oh, okay. So yeah, sometimes if you have, yeah, because the next one was with the export statement. Yeah. Okay. So commit that. Hopefully my running config looks nice and clean now with those changes. So, oops, and it looks like I've got, no, I got everything good. So, yeah. All right, so yep, everything looks good. And then, of course, I'm going to need to look at these separately with mesh statements. Perfect. Looks like this into EBGP is not yet being called on the interface. So I'm going to, or in the EBGP neighbor. So I'm going to do edit protocols group, oops, BGP group EBGP, show pipe display set relative, and I'm going to do set export into EBGP. And now, hopefully, that issue with Miami will no longer, let's see here. Okay, well, it looks like we've got them all, but they're all hidden. And here you go. So see this? This should look familiar. So is that going to be the correct next hop for the one Miami? Not at all. So when Atlanta puts this into IBGP, it's got to update that next hop. So it's going to need that next hop self policy statement. Yep, so I can just copy it like this, put it into Atlanta, because right now it's got nothing like that. So configure private, and then we'll see all of these drop off from the hidden. Oops, yeah, it's got to go into IBGP, because that's the whole problem. When it's in, yep, so now it dropped out off from hidden. So let's take a look at the routes that are not hidden. There we go. So now the issue is going to be resolved. There we go. So, boom. All right, that feels good. So I'm going to try to ping it. I trace routed it, but I just want to feel extra super good. So now I'm going to move on to the next route. 72.28.37.1. Oops. Oh, that's the source address. Gotta change the target address. There we go, that works too. So now I've just got one IP address that I can't ping from Biloxi, or that I don't know if I can ping from Biloxi. Maybe I can. So I'm going to try that. I'm going to keep my source address. So no route to host, same deal. So now we got to go over to Jackson. We're going to need to put similar policies on Jackson as we had on Memphis. We just won't need that next hop self policy on Topeka because there's no IBGP routes to add, only EBGP routes. But we will need all of the routes here, and we're going to need to make sure Topeka can ping these as well. The next hop will need to be modified on those routes. So I'm just going to grab the configuration from Memphis because that's going to be very useful. And now it's time to look at Jackson. Looks like Jackson's got 3 neighbors. So let's see what it's learning from each of its neighbor. So .2, that's going to be this neighbor here. It's got nothing. What about the other neighbor? In its the other IBGP neighbor. So it's learning all 3 of its own IBGP routes. Oh no, so it looks like it's learning these 3 routes through IBGP over here. I don't see that it's learning this route at all. So that's definitely something that's going to need to be looked at. I have a feeling it's missing from the route filter list on Memphis, so might need to be added. So this is 192.168.22.0. Yep, so I don't see it there. I'll just add that, and hopefully that will, I of course got it to EBGP, but I don't have it to IBGP. I guess I was expecting Jackson to be able to learn it from this link, but let's add that here. Well, actually, I think I'm going to need to end the video right now. So really good news. In this video, we've made it so that Biloxi could ping every router in AS931. So we've only got 1 router left for Biloxi to be able to ping every router, and that's Topeka. Then we'll do Memphis, Jackson, and we'll work our way through all the routers and make sure every router can ping every other router. So good stuff to come. Thanks for watching.